Select the one to fight with. Get it on. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Pick and choose the right one. Get it on. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah. Select the one to fight with. Get it on. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Yes, sir. Pick and choose the right one. Get it on. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello everybody, what's up? It's your favorite Non-Bae here, aka PG Omani, aka PG13. You're tuned into another episode of Non-Bae Says on the Non-Bae channel. Thank you once again for rocking with me, and hopefully you take something from this episode. Well, today is a little bit more of a somber day, a little bit more of a somber episode, because I want to dedicate this episode to those who have experienced the pain of losing a loved one. So if you had a lost one, a family member, a friend, spouse, children, an acquaintance, even a pet, this episode is dedicated to everybody who has experienced the pain of loss. Thus the title, Lost Ones. Today I want to talk about me losing my best friend at the time, 4 years ago. His name was Stephen Williamson. He left Earth on March 11, 2018, and this is around the time where we remember him, and like I said, it's the 4-year anniversary, so I definitely want to use this episode to tell the story of that time. Just writing it out even was kind of painful in a sense, like all the memories start to come right back up because I was recollecting, however you want to say it, the experience, and definitely things like this take time to heal. So it was kind of rough writing it, but I'm okay. I'll be able to tell the story. So let's start this off. I remember it vividly. It was a Friday evening. My car was broken down and I was waiting on my ride from work. I had newly acquired a job at the time as a news production assistant at a new local news station that was up and coming. If anybody lives in my country, they would definitely know exactly what news station I'm talking about, but no names calling here on the show. I usually waited for my ride like in a gas station rest station, which is right next to the studio that I worked in. I kind of didn't want to wait inside the parking lot of the news station because it was pretty cramped, people coming in and out. That was kind of hectic, so I wanted to give the people who was picking me up or who was offering me a ride at the time some comfortability in making sure they're able to park and maneuver and the whole nine, you know? Stephen lived not too far from the studio where I work. It's literally about like 2 minutes away by foot. So I was able to make a trot to him sometimes. He would have been able to trot to the gas station sometimes, whatever may have you, you know? And as I was waiting in the service station, he was passing. He was coming off from work. You know, he would normally catch the bus. That's where the bus would stop, on the opposite side of the service station. And he was passing, so I beckoned for him to come in and join me for a small chat before he made his way home. So we shot the breeze about my car being down and cracked jokes about it or whatever. Maybe about, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes, if that much, probably more, I don't know. But yeah, he was ready to go, so he went off his way, and that was the last time I would see him alive. I usually visit Steph about once a week, usually on Sundays. Sometimes I visit him a couple more days in the week or whatever, may have you. Definitely when I had a car, it had been like more times in the week. So I normally would see him frequently, you know, but I guess at the time when my car was down or whatever, I just kind of sparingly took the time to come and visit him when I could, I guess. I didn't go to visit that Sunday though. It just really didn't happen, and now at first I forgot why I didn't visit him, but it's clicking to me right now. I had my car. You know, my car has a lot of availability and help me to do things and go back and forth. And I guess since I didn't have the car, you know, I didn't make the move to go and visit him, because where I live and where he lived is quite a distance away, and a car would definitely help. So I wasn't able to see him on that Sunday. It just didn't happen or whatever. I don't even remember being in communication with him over the cell phone though, now that I think about it. I wasn't able to text him and stuff like that. But anyway, I went to work bright and early on Monday morning, and as soon as I got in the office, I was notified that I got a call from staff's office. He worked at an orthodontic office over here, and they had called me apparently numerous times before I even got in. And just to put this in perspective, I was going to work pretty early. One, because I didn't have a car, so I had to get up early and get out there and make my means of getting to work however I would have made my means, which means I had probably gotten into work that morning at about maybe 7:45, 8 o'clock to start a 9 o'clock shift. So I was literally like an hour before time and stuff like that. And yeah, so I went into work, and by the time I got in, apparently his office had called me numerous times looking for me, in lieu of looking for him, obviously. So when I was notified about that, I called the office back, and they informed me that he hadn't showed up to work that morning. And it wasn't like him at all to be late, first of all, and then to be late on top of that and not notify somebody. Yeah, that definitely was in prime staff. So I was kind of in agreement of what they told me, and I was like, yeah, I think he would have let somebody know that he would have been late and not be late in the first place. So I thought it was pretty strange of him. And like I said, since my workspace was so close to where he lived, I offered to just go and check on him at home, Like, yeah, man, I'll just go and see if he's home, and I'll get back to y'all once I get an update. So, took like a minute or two to go over to his place, knocked on the door, and did the normal routine that I normally do to alert him that I was there. There was no response. So I immediately called his cell phone to see if he would like pick up the phone. So no response. I started to panic a bit, but thought he had gone like back to our hometown in Freeport, Grand Bahama. Just was playing like a trick or intentionally being irresponsible, because he may have just needed a break or something, and he just decided to pick up and leave and, do something weird, or just like probably was hanging out by somebody who I didn't know of. I mean, normally if Steph would have done something like that, he would have at least informed me, but I was like, I don't know, maybe he just kind of, went cold turkey on this one and just did what he did. I mean, he's a grown man. We all grown people, so we obligated to do what we want to do without necessarily informing someone. But I thought that DC would have informed me about something like that, because normally when we talk about stuff, we could just talk about anything, honestly. So I continued calling him on his cell phone. No response. And that's when I started to get a little bit worried, like really worried, like paranoia was starting to kick in. Bunch of random thoughts going in my mind. Maybe he was lost, maybe something dangerous happened, I don't know. So I was like, it's kind of weird. He ain't picking up his cell phone. He ain't home. How I can be able to find him, or where could he even be? Maybe he might have like been en route to Freeport, like on the airplane, because we have to take an airplane to get back to our actual hometown, because the Bahamas is an archipelago of islands. So maybe at that current point in time, he might have been in the air, which was making sense to me. So I was like, hopefully that's what that is, and soon enough he can see the missed calls or whatever, obviously from his work too, and we would have been hearing from him sooner than later, And luckily I'm patient, so I kept my composure even though I was kind of paranoid. And I knew his roommate, so I gave her a ring on her cell phone, asked her if she knew about his whereabouts, and gave it a rundown about his job calling, and I was there and I wasn't getting no response or whatever. So she instantly came there to the apartment and opened the front door for me, because we needed to get inside to at least figure out if he was home. When we went in, we knocked on Steph's door and beckoned out to him. No response. His door was locked. So at this point in time, we really pretty much had to do this. We ended up picking the lock and broke into his room. The worst had happened. We found him laying there on the floor, face down, motionless. Obviously he was in panic mode. We called out his name, tried to budge him. He wasn't even thinking about like evidence, whatever legal issues it would be upon finding an unconscious, i.e. dead body. But we just was trying to nudge him, call out his name, trying to make him come to consciousness, but nothing happened. So I called an ambulance and we just sat there waiting in anguish. Shortly after the call, the ambulance came, and the optimist in me was saying, look, are you ready to take this ride in the ambulance? Stick by his side until all may have been well, see if, they could take him to the hospital, somehow resuscitate him. I was ready, willing to wait basically all day, next day, whatever may have you, however long it would have taken. And that was literally me being very optimistic, although there was clearly obvious signs there to tell us that he had moved on, passed on. Then he was announced dead on arrival. It broke the both of us. It broke me. It broke his roommate. Me and his roommate friends. I know I couldn't deliver that news to his family, so what I did was I called the office back and I gave them the update about what had happened, as I told them that I was going to give them the update, and they eventually informed his family. And after that, it was just getting the word out to the rest of our friends. I think his office actually shut down for that day. Upon hearing the news, they came to the site to see what was going on. A couple other friends came to see what was going on, and his family, definitely his sister and his mom and his aunt had come. His aunt lived where we lived, on the island that we lived, but his sister and his mom lived in our hometown. They took a flight over, and we all was able to witness the body, and they had to, wrap up the body, take it out later down in the day. And man, that was one of the toughest things ever, because I had to witness that, him getting strolled out and stuff like that. The hairs on my arm, hairs on the back of my neck, hairs all over my body just was standing up. That was literally the main time I actually broke down and cried about it. Real talk. And there was one other actual time that I seriously broke down and cried about it, when we just had basically a party in remembrance of his honor before I went for the funeral. But otherwise, yeah, it was a really, really, really tough time. Like I said, at that time in life, he was pretty much my best friend. We was able to honestly share stories with each other and just talk to each other, no judgment, and able to spend time and shoot the breeze about anything, really, while he was here. And he literally had a personality that wasn't on the bad side of anybody. He was literally somebody who nobody had any qualms with. He didn't have no beef with nobody, and everybody literally saw him as a good person. And everybody just liked Steph. He was really manly. He had a lot of respect. And he was just one of those type people, who you really couldn't get on his bad side. And obviously he couldn't get, he never got on anybody's bad side, because he was just so understanding about almost everything, because it was almost like a revolving door. At the same time, I wouldn't say he was going through things, but he just knew life. He literally just knew life. He didn't have to directly go through certain experiences that certain people go through in life, but he was definitely able to understand, to be empathetic, sympathetic, whatever may have you. And that's a very rare personality type, honestly, especially with having such an intertwined web of people that you associate with, acquaintance with, and all that stuff. To have nobody in your bad books, or you be in nobody else's bad books, that's definitely a rare type of person. And it was somebody who I definitely used to click with, which is why I gravitated towards him a whole lot, confided in him sometimes. He confided in me sometimes and stuff like that. And it was just a sad thing when he left us. I mean, it definitely affects a lot of us in our friends group. Everybody was crying about it. We kind of put together a portrait, like a collage portrait, in honor of him, just to show how much he meant to us. Presented a physical copy to his family when we went over for the funeral. And once again, I just like to say I dedicate this specific episode to anybody who have lost anybody that was close to them and still feeling the pain, honestly, because things like this, some people have tried to say, well, get over it, time moves forward and stuff like that. And that is true, time does move forward. And your loved one would want you to live your life and do what you gotta do and stuff like that. But the reality is you do never get over stuff like this. Sometimes it may seem, in quotation marks, easy. You don't never forget, but sometimes, you just live in your life and stuff, and then something small might happen, something delicate might happen that just triggers or reminds you, or a memory pop up, and what you thought you might have been over, not over necessarily, but you thought you might have healed, just opens the whole wound right open again. And it just is tough. Like right now, doing this episode, writing this episode was one of those reopening cuts to me, honestly. And I mean, honestly, like I say, I was working right in the vicinity of where he lived, and I stayed on that job for about 2 years after his death, and I literally had to pass his place each and every day. And just looking at the apartment complex was a grim reminder of that day. I mean, it's not hard to lose somebody. Having to be the one to find them is a whole different kind of and the word escapes me right now, actually, but it's a whole different kind of trauma. That's it. Trauma and anxiety and all that stuff. And I've gotten over it a bit since that time, but boy, oh boy, I would be lying if I say that I totally over it, or some days just don't catch me out at random, when I'm just like down in the dumps and stuff, especially like when it was super, super fresh. And I was still sending things to like his WhatsApp, and like, I should send this to Steph, I should talk to Steph about this. And I was like, oh yeah, that can't happen. And I do find myself lapsing into that sometimes too. But I don't want to be too much of a negative Nate or a downer right now. This is just an episode just dedicated, like, once again, to anybody who lost somebody. It's tough. Times will get better, and sometimes, even though you might think, hey, we wish they were still there, once they was living right, which Steph was, they moving on to a better place, definitely better than freaking Earth. I mean, since then, look at all the things that we gone through. Sometimes you just wish that, boy, you really need to be here, because Earth sucks. But you still gotta live on, make things right. Make sure you're living a good life. Definitely want to make a call to action to anybody who ain't living their life right, who needs to get right in their spirituality and their faith. I walk a Christian life, so anybody who's walking a Christian life too, get right with yourselves. Make sure you live in a good life. Read your Bible, pray every day, go to church if you go to church, and just do right by people. Give your life up to the Lord. Do everything that you got to do to make sure you living right, because none of us know the time, the day, or the hour. So just make sure when that time comes, whenever it may be, you know where you're going, into the right place. But anyway, that's been a short episode. I would say it was a short episode, long enough, of Non-Bae Says. Thank you once again for tuning in to another episode. If you have any suggestions on what I should talk about, or if you want to hear my perspective on certain things, let me know in the comments below, or you could message me, or if you do see me in real life, if you have a face-to-face contact with me, just let me know, and when we have a discussion, and I'll probably get to that episode when I get to that episode. But once again, thank you for listening in, and I would like to say this has been your favorite Non-Bae. I'm signing out. Peace.